he had been staring at the cougar for probably 20 to 30 seconds, and which is a long time. He said he just froze and didn't know what to do. I just got chills up my spine because all I had was my pocket knife. And I'm start thinking, you know, what am I going to do when I get up there and I have to fight this bear for my deer? Hey guys, welcome back to Axe Family. Cody and I were hanging out here in my gun room and thought it'd be fun to share some hunting stories with you guys about some of the deer and animals that I've hunted in the past and harvested. So, which I usually keep this up on these horns. It's kind of a cool story we could start with. It's a Robin Hood and arrow. There's a lot of archers out there that have made Robin Hood shots, but this Robin Hood shot that I made is particularly interesting because I made this in a Cabela store when I was trying to decide what bow to buy. And I was shooting some, I can't remember, bear bows and maybe PSE and diamond bows. Or the main bows Cabela sells, and I was shooting a bear bow, the bear charge, which is actually the bow I ended up buying. This was about 8 years ago, and I made the first couple shots with that bow and Robin Hooded this arrow, and it was the first Robin Hood shot I'd ever made, and I figured, well, the bow worked well enough to do this, so I should probably buy it. So that's the bow I ended up buying. And it's worked really well for me ever since. This buck on the end here is actually the first buck I ended up shooting with my bow. I don't remember how many years ago that was, but it was in Washington. And my buddy and I, Matt, had been hunting quite a long time, archery hunting for mule deer, and we spotted this buck. We spotted another buck, and we were sneaking in on him, trying to get close to him. He took off, and we were kind of discouraged there for just a second because the buck ran away, and all of a sudden this other buck jumped up right next to us and ran across the little draw we were in. And it was this buck, and I shot him at about 50 yards, and he dropped right where it was. And that was the first buck I ever shot, and it was a good memory. It's a fun time with Matt. This buck here, kind of a goofy looking 3x3 mule deer, but he's built kind of like an elk the way his horns go back, so he's a interesting looking mule deer. I shot this deer with another buddy of mine named Tanner. Hey Tanner, hope you're watching this video. This is a great story. I was with Tanner and his cousin and his dad in Idaho, and we were hunting in some burned timber area up in the mountains, and we were up on this ridge, and we're all glassing this big country looking for deer, and we're not seeing any deer. And Tanner and I are, I don't know, 15 years old. We're young and didn't have a whole lot of interest in glassing for hours, and so we're in a line, and it goes Tanner, his dad, his cousin, and me. We're looking out this way, and I fell asleep because I wasn't that interested, or I wasn't seeing anything. And this group of deer walked up over the ridge like 30 yards from us, and they're standing at the end of kind of our line of our people. So I'm at the end, and I'm the only one that can shoot because I'm in the way of everyone else, but I'm sleeping. So these other three guys are going, "Jake, wake up, wake up." And I'm just dead asleep, so Tanner's cousin starts taking rocks and throwing them at me. And he finally gets this big rock and chucks it at me and hits me pretty hard with it. And it wakes me up, and I was like, what are you doing? And they're like, "There's deer right there." And so I turn, and sure enough, there's a buck right there, and I just woken up, so I'm kind of in a daze, and I don't really know what to do. And it was, gosh, I had only shot, I think, one deer before. And so I grabbed my gun and racked a shell as quick as I could and turned and shot him, and he took off, and Tanner's cousin and I went up over the hill and put another bullet in him. And that's the Idaho sleeper buck story. That was a good memory with Tanner. Good time. This buck is the first whitetail I shot. It's just a little 3x3 whitetail with eye guards. I remember this buck being way bigger than it is when I shot it. I was also a lot younger. But I shot this buck also in Idaho with my uncle. And we were in some really thick country. And my uncle and I split up. And I was by myself, and it was really thick where we were, so I had this little opening, maybe 100 yards at the farthest point. And I sat down, and the rut was going on pretty heavy, and so I buck grunted just a little bit and just did a little bit of rattling. And in the time it took me to look down and set my buck grunt down and look back up, there was a buck standing there like 50 yards from me. This buck, just a little buck, came in to check it out, see what was going on, and I couldn't believe it. I had never called in a buck before, and so I racked a shell, and he trotted off behind some trees, and I was just trying to wait for a clear shot behind the trees, and finally he stopped and just had a little bit of brush in the way, and I shot him, and he dropped right where he was, and double lunged him, made a great shot. And that's kind of where the story begins, because I called my uncle. I had only been there 10 minutes, and I called my uncle, and he couldn't believe I had already shot a buck. And so he comes up, and we field dress it out, and I tell him there's a bunch of snow on the ground, and I say, hey, you go keep hunting. I'm going to take the buck back up to the truck, which was maybe a mile and a half or so, and I will stash it by the truck, put it away. I'll grab some snacks and come back down and hunt with you. So he says okay, and so I rig up this harness out of rope, paracord, and I drag this buck up this skid road to the truck, and I leave it about 50 yards short of the truck and hide it in the trees and open it up, put some snow in it to get it to cool off. And I put my gun away because I was done hunting, and locked it in the truck, and grabbed some snacks and went back to my uncle. Well, we hunted for a little bit. We didn't see anything. And I told my uncle, this was maybe 20 minutes before it got dark, I said, hey, I'm going to go up. I'll load the buck up. I'll get the truck warmed up. You keep hunting for the last, half hour, and then you can come up. And he thought that was a great idea because he didn't have to do much work. I was willing to take care of it all, and so we're split up again. So I'm walking back up this skid road, and I'm following this drag trail in the snow that has blood in it from where I had drugged my deer just a little bit earlier. And about halfway back to the truck, bear tracks come out of the brush onto the skid road, and they're right on top of my footprints from when I had come back down. And he's following that blood trail right where I went, and I just got chills up my spine because all I had was my pocket knife. And I'm start thinking, what am I going to do when I get up there and I have to fight this bear for my deer? This is the first whitetail I had ever shot, and I was really proud of it. I called it in. It was a pretty epic hunt for me. So I get right around the last corner from where I stashed the deer, and I just started yelling. Started making a lot of noise, hoping that the bear would hear me and take off. And I come around the corner, and it was like a year after the other Idaho buck. I was like 16 years old. And so I had pulled my knife out thinking, I'm going to have to fight this bear because he's not going to want to give up my buck. So I got my knife out, and I'm making some noise, and I come around the corner, and he had just bailed off the edge. And so I run up to my deer, which he had been eating on, and the bear's just running off the edge of the hill, crashing through the trees, running away. And so luckily he did run away, and I had scared him, but he had eaten one of the rumps off of my deer and chewed up the neck and had just started going to town to it, and he had drug it actually down the road about 30 yards and was about to drag it off the hill. So if I had to come up 10 minutes later, my buck might have been gone. So that was kind of a crazy story and fun to think back on the time I almost had to fight a bear for my deer. So another hunting story that's a great memory of mine. I was hunting up in Washington with my buddy Matt, and we used to hunt a lot together, and we went over to eastern Washington to hunt white-tailed deer and with a rifle. And we were in the snow, and we were sitting on this ridge that we were told was a good game trail, and we're back to back on this tree, and we're just above this skid road, maybe 30 yards, and I'm looking uphill, and my buddy Matt is sitting next to me, and he's looking downhill. And we'd been sitting there quiet for a little while, and all of a sudden my buddy Matt says, "Jake, get your gun." And that's it. And I said, "Okay, like, what is it? Are there deer?" And he says, "No, it's a cougar." And he was just very serious, but I thought he was joking. So I said, "Okay, yeah, sure. Quit joking around. Seriously, are there deer?" And he's like, "No, I'm not joking. Get your gun. There's a cougar." And I could just tell by his voice that he wasn't joking around. So I lean around the tree and look by Matt, and there's this cougar standing no more than 30 yards, just staring at us. And come to find out, after this all happened, Matt said that he had been staring at the cougar for probably 20 to 30 seconds. And which is a long time. He said he just froze and didn't know what to do because this thing walked up and was right there staring at him. And then he finally realized he needed to tell me. So this cat had been standing there almost a minute before I got my gun ready. So I see the cougar, and I back around the tree. And if I'm sitting here looking uphill, Matt's sitting on this side of me. And I rack a shell in my gun. And I said, "Matt, lean back. I'm going to lean around the tree over you and shoot it." Because Matt didn't have a gun. I didn't say that. I was the only one hunting. Matt was just along for the hunt with me. And there was brush on the right side of the tree, so I couldn't go that way. And I'm right-handed, so I had to go this way. I couldn't reach around that way. And so Matt leans back, and I lean around the tree over the top of him, no more than 30 yards, and shoot this cat. And this cat's standing in the middle of the road, this skid road, and I double lunged it, but it, in one leap, in a split second, it was gone. It leapt into the trees. It looked like it jumped 100 feet. It was unbelievable how far this mountain lion jumped. And it ran through a bunch of brush that was covered in snow, and all the snow fell off the brush so we could see right where it went. And we didn't see anything on the road but a tiny little piece of lung. So I was like, okay, good. So we went off the road and just saw blood spray all over the snow, so I knew I hit it in the lungs. It was a good shot. So we waited just a little bit to make sure it had some time to expire, and then followed that trail of where the snow fell off down through the brush and found it, and it had ran no more than 60 or 70 yards. It didn't make it far, and died. So this is the lion that I shot in Washington, and that was such a great experience with Matt. Good memory, and what a good hunt. We didn't end up coming home with a deer, but we came home with a mountain lion. And sometimes I like to wear it on my head when our guests come over. You can kind of wear it like a cape. You know, if you got like new neighbors that come over for dinner or something, you can welcome to my home. It's just like a kind of a comfy robe. You could also tie the paws around your waist and like this, or to keep your neck warm. You know. Just kidding.
That's funny.